Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Eric. He's sort of the great and mighty Oz behind the invisible curtain. Everybody knows why we're here, right? I don't have to say things like I'm going to read Beedle by J.K. Rowling. Turn the head. Sorry. That's the point of the presentation where Snape went. I can sit at the desk or I can stand out here in front. If I stand out here in front, I'm going to move around a little bit. Do you guys have a preference? You'd rather see all of me than just like the sort of Beethoven bust from the neck up. That's just wrong. We only have a limited amount of time, so I may not be able to read all of the tales of Beedle. I've done this at a few different places, and my favorite one to read is the one that when I'm done, everybody does this. Yes, it's in the very heart. But you all came here so you could hear me read Babbity, Rabbity. I found this on page 319. A long time ago, in a far-off land, there lived a foolish king who decided that he alone should have the power of magic, and therefore commanded the head of his army to form a brigade of witch hunters and issued them a pack of ferocious black hounds. At the same time, the king caused proclamations to be read in every village and town across the land. Wanted by the king, an instructor of magic. This is the difficulties of holding a wand. No true witch dared volunteer for the post, for they were all in hiding from the brigade of witch hunters. However, a cunning charlatan with no magical power saw a chance of enriching himself and arrived at the palace claiming to be a wizard of enormous skill. The charlatan performed a few simple tricks that convinced the foolish king's magical powers and immediately was appointed Grand Sorcerer-in-Chief, the king's private magic master. The charlatan bade the king give him a large sack of gold that he might purchase wands and other magical necessities. He also requested several large rubies to be used in the casting of cure charms, and a silver chalice or two for the storing and cheering of potions. All of these things the foolish king supplied. The charlatan stowed the treasure safely in his own house and returned to the palace grounds. He did not know that he was being watched by an old woman who lived in a hovel on the edge of the grounds. Her name was Babbity Rabbity. She was the washerwoman who kept the palace linen soft, fragrant, and white. That's the scariest part of this film. Peeping from behind her drying sheets, Babbity saw the charlatan snap 2 twigs from one of the king's trees and disappear into the palace. The charlatan gave one of the twigs to the king and assured him it was a wand of great and tremendous power. It will Every morning the charlatan and the foolish king walked out into the palace grounds, where they waved their wands and shouted nonsense at the sky. The charlatan was careful to perform more tricks so that the king remained convinced of the grand sorcerer's skill and the power of the wands that had cost him so very much gold. One morning, as the charlatan and the foolish king were twirling their twigs, chanting meaningless rhymes in circles, a loud cackling could be reached the king's ears. Babity, the woman, was watching the king and the charlatan from the window of her tiny cottage and was laughing so hard that she soon sank out of sight, too weak to stand. I must look most undignified to make the old washerwoman laugh, said the king. He ceased his hopping and twig twirling. Frowned. I grow weary of practice. When will I be ready to perform real spells in front of my subject sorcerer? The charlatan tried to soothe his people, assuring them that he soon would be capable of great feats of magic. Tomorrow, said the king, I will invite our court to watch the king perform magic. You okay? This is the part where the Star Trek fans get really confused. The charlatan saw that the time had come to take his treasure and flee. Alas, Your Majesty, it is impossible. I had forgotten to tell you that I must set out on a really long journey. If you leave this place without my permission, sorcerer of my brigade of witch hunters will hunt you down with their hounds. Tomorrow morning you will assist me to perform magic for the benefit of my lords and ladies, and if anybody laughs at me, I shall have you beheaded. The king stormed back to the palace, leaving the charlatan alone and afraid. Not all his cunning could save him now, for he could not run away, nor could he help the king with the magic that neither of them knew. Seeking to vent his fear and anger, the charlatan approached the window of Babity, the washerwoman. Peering inside, he saw the old lady sitting at a table, polishing a wand. In the corner behind her, the king's sheets were washing themselves in a wooden tub. The charlatan understood at once that Babity was a true witch, and that she, who had caused this awful problem, could also solve it. Crone! Roared the charlatan, your cackling has cost me, and if you fail to help me, I will denounce you as a witch. And if you fail to help me, you will be ripped apart by the king's hounds. And then you turn the page. Getting to the best part of the story. People die. Old Babity smiled at the charlatan and assured him that she would do everything in her power to help. Possibly go wrong. The charlatan instructed her to conceal herself inside a bush, and when the king gave his magical display, Babity agreed to the plan, but asked one question. What, sir, if the king attempts a spell that Babity cannot perform? Your magic is more than equal to that fool's imagination, he assured her, and with that he retired to the castle. The following morning, all of the lords and ladies of the kingdom assembled at the palace grounds. The king climbed onto the stage. Envision this. Climbed onto the stage, charlatan by his side. Yes, that way, thank you. From inside the bush nearby, Babity pointed her wand at the hat and caused it to vanish. Great was the astonishment of the crowd, and admiration and applause for the jubilant king. Next, I shall make a horse fly, cried the king, pointing his twig at his own steed. From inside the bush, Babity pointed her wand at the horse, and it rose high in the air. If you can see this, this is the horse. Intense animation provided by J.K. Rowling. The crowd was still more thrilled and amazed, and then the king looked around for an idea, and the captain of the witch brigade came forth. Your Majesty, said the captain, this very morning Saber died eating a poisonous toadstool. Bring him back to life. And the captain heaved onto the stage the lifeless body of the largest of the witch-hunting hounds. The foolish king brandished his twig, pointed it at the dead dog, that's the dramatic effect. Sorry, the pieces are really tenacious. Babbity smiled and did not trouble to lift her wand, for no true magic can raise the dead. When the dog did not stir, the crowd began to whisper and then to laugh. They suspected that the king's first 2 feats had been mere tricks. "Why doesn't it work?" screamed the king. "There, your majesty, there," shouted the charlatan, and pointed to the bush where Babbity was set concealed. "I see her, a wicked witch who is blocking your magic with her own evil spells. Seize her! Somebody seize her!" Babbity fled the bush, and the brigade of witch hunters set off in pursuit, unleashing the hounds who bayed for Babbity's blood. But as she reached a low hedge, the little witch disappeared from sight, and when all the courtiers scattered to the other side, they found the pack of witch-hunting hounds barking around the bent and aged tree. Thank you. "She has turned herself into a tree," screamed the charlatan, and dreading lest Babbity turn back into a woman, denounced him, and he added, "Cut her down. Cut her down. That is the only way to treat evil witches." An axe was brought at once, and the old tree was felled to loud cheers of the courtiers and the charlatan. However, I feel the same way. A sound of loud cackling stopped them in their tracks. "Fools!" cried Babbity's voice. "No witch or wizard can be killed by being cut in half. Take the axe if you do not believe me, and cut the grand sorcerer in two." The captain of the witch brigade and the hunters were eager to make this experiment, but as he raised the axe, the charlatan fell to his knees, screaming for mercy and confessing all his wickedness. As he was dragged away to the dungeons, the tree stump cackled even more loudly. "By cutting a witch in half, you have unleashed a dreadful curse upon your kingdom. Henceforth, every stroke of harm you inflict upon my fellow witches and wizards will feel like an axe stroke in your own side. Until you wish you could die of it." At that, the king fell to his knees too, and told the stump that he would issue a proclamation at once protecting all witches and wizards in the kingdom, and allowing them to practice their magic in peace. "Very good," said the stump, "but you have not yet made amends to Babbity." "Anything at all," cried the foolish king. "You will erect a statue of Babbity upon this very rock in memory of your poor washerwoman." Silence fell in like this. "To remind you forever of your own foolishness," the king agreed to it at once and promised to engage the foremost sculptor in the land and have a statue made of pure gold. Then the shamed king and all the noblemen and women returned to the palace, leaving the tree stump cackling behind them. Thank you. Just like that. When the grounds were deserted once more, there wriggled from a hole between the roots of the tree stump a stout and whiskery old rabbit with a wand clamped between her teeth. Babbity hopped out of the grounds, and far away, and ever after to this day, a gold statue of the washerwoman stands upon the tree stump, and no witch or wizard has ever been prosecuted in the kingdom again. How are we doing on time? Quarter after. I assume you want more than just one story.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to get to that. Because if I don't, then you guys will go on Twitter and say Snape read everything but the three brothers. Snape fail. Can't have that. What I need at this point is a volunteer from the audience. All right, usually someone not entirely old, someone fairly youthful. Not you, free hugs guy. You guys want to see something funny though?
Yeah.
Can you hold the microphone?
Hi, I'm Beth.
Hi, Beth.
You have a very important job to do. Hold that. And this. Now, Adam. Oh, you just have to wing and some things here. Can you hit this with that? Thank you. Do you have any idea what you're about to do? This is the part where we see if you're a quick learner or not. All right? Beth, right? All right. I don't want to put any pressure on you or anything, but your entire life hinges on this very moment. Trust me, I've lived through moments like this. I've lived through moments like this. Do or die moments. We're now going to read the story of the wizard and the hopping pot. Sound effects provided by Beth. Either that or your parents forced you to wear bright shirts that could find you if you got lost in a crowd of like very clever. I know that. She was just Max, I didn't pick her. Later, when you're walking in the con and you see that woman, you can stick out your tongue. There once was a... Am I interrupting you? Don't make me laugh. The entire room. There once was a kindly old wizard who used his magic generously and wisely for the benefit of his neighbors and small children. Rather than reveal the true source of his power, he pretended that his potions, charms, and antidotes spring from a ready-made little cauldron he called his lucky cooking pot. For miles around, people came to him with their troubles, and the wizard was pleased to give his pot a little stir and put things right. The well-beloved wizard lived to a goodly age, then died.
Wow.
The end. As read by Professor Snape. J.K. Rowling wrote more. Leaving all his goods to his only son. This son was very different from his gentle father, and those who could not work magic were, in this son's mind, worthless, and he often had quarreled with his father's habit of dispensing magical aid to his neighbors. Upon the father's death, the son found hidden inside an old cooking pot with a small package bearing his name. He opened it, hoping for gold, but instead found a soft, thick slipper, much too small to wear, and with no parent. A fragment of parchment within the slipper bore these words, "In the fond hope, my son, that you will never need it." The son cursed his father's age-softened mind and threw the slipper into the cauldron, resolving to use it henceforth as a rubbish pail. That very night, a peasant woman knocked on the front door. Now, if I had something for you to knock other than the pot, I would give you something, but I don't. I could. You know what? I'm going to make you move. Okay. Thanks for moving the chair, though. You go stand behind. You're just going to take the chair back.
Yeah.
Whose kid is this? Well done. Stand up, that's mother. Stand up. She likes Star Trek, Harry Potter, and she puts things back. You're having envy of every parent. All of their kids. Can you stand behind the podium? You can't be seen now, can you? Actually, do this. do this. I'm going to have you stand here, Beth. Usually there's not this much setup required. Can you do that? Oh, you're talented. This is how it works, sound effect. You're the sound effect girl, in case you haven't worked this out yet. This is your hopping pot. This is my front door. Brilliant. Are you ready? Yes. Thank you, Beth. That very night, a peasant woman knocked on the front door. My granddaughter is afflicted by a crop of old warts, sir, she told him. Your father used to mix a special potion in that old cooking pot. Begone, cried the son. What do I care for your brat's warts? Then he slammed the door in the old woman's face. Slam. Very, very good, Beth. Thank you. At once there came a loud clanging and banging from his kitchen. Thank you. The wizard opened the door. The wizard lit his wand and opened the door, and there, to his amazement, he saw his father's old cooking pot. It had sprouted a single foot of brass and was hopping on a spot in the middle of the floor, making a fearful noise. The wizard approached it in wonder, but he fell back hurriedly. He saw that the whole pot's surface was covered in warts. Disgusting object, he cried, and he tried first to vanish the pot, and then to clean it by magic, and finally to force it out of the house. But none of his spells worked. He was unable to prevent the hopping pot from hopping after him out of the kitchen, following him up the stairs to bed, clanging and banging very loudly. The wizard could not sleep all night for the banging of the warty old pot by his bedside. The next morning, the pot insisted upon hopping up to him after the breakfast table. Clang, clang, clang went the brass-footed pot. And the wizard had not even started his porridge when there came another knock at the door. "'Tis my donkey, sir. Lost she is, or stolen, and without her I cannot take my wares to market. My family will go hungry and die." "I'm hungry now." And he slammed the door. Clang, clang, clang went the cooking pot. Eventually... But now its clamor was mixed with brays of a donkey and human groans of hunger echoing from the depths of the pot. "Be still, be silent," shrieked the wizard, but not all his magical powers could quiet the warty pot, which hopped at his heels all day, braying and groaning and clanging, no matter where he went or what he did. That evening there came a third knock at the door. And there at the threshold stood a young woman sobbing, as though her heart would break. "My baby is grievously ill," she said. "Won't you please help us? Your father told me that if I was ever troubled," but the wizard slammed the door on her. And now the tormenting pot filled to the brim with salt water, slopped tears all over the floor as it hopped and brayed and groaned and sprouted more warts. Though no more villagers came to seek and help the wizard, the pot kept them informed of every one of their ills. Within a few days, it was not only braying and groaning and slopping and hopping and sprouting warts, it also was choking and retching, crying like a baby, whining like a dog, spewing out bad cheese and sour milk, and a plague of hungry slugs. With the pot beside him, for the pot refused to leave his side and would not be silenced and would not be still. The wizard could bear it no more. "Bring me all of your problems, all of your troubles and woes," he screamed, fleeing into the night with the pot hopping behind him, clinging.
comfort you. I have my father's cooking pot, and I will make you well. Illustration by J.K. Rowling's people. Animation by Professor Snape. And the foul pod still bound along behind him. He ran up the streets casting spells in every direction. Inside one house, a little girl's horse vanished as she slept. The lost donkey summoned from a distant briar patch sat down beside her in the stable. The sick baby was doused into dittany and woke well rosy. And every house of sickness and sorrow the wizard did his best, and gradually the cooking pot beside him stopped groaning and rushing and became quiet, shiny, and clean. Well, pot, asked the wizard, and as the sun began to rise, the pot burnt out a single slipper. It's worth a shot, that's all. Permitted him to put the slipper onto it, and together they set off back to the wizard's house, the pot's footsteps muffled at last, and from that day forward the wizard helped the villagers, like his father before him, lest the pot cast off its slipper and began to hop once more. The end.
Now it's very important in showbiz. And have you been on stage before? Oh, fantastic. I'm not going to ask you what you did because they don't care. And get used to this. And it's very important in showbiz to, one, accept applause, and two, respond correctly to it. So what I want you to do is come out very, very deeply, and they are going to clap for you. And when they're done clapping, you stand back up and go sit back down. Got it? Okay, so bow. Snape doesn't go anywhere without me. I'm going to read my favorite one and then your favorite one. There once was a handsome, rich, and talented young warlock. Who observed that his friends grew foolish when they fell in love, gambling, preening, losing their appetites and their dignity.
Shame.
For shame. The young warlock resolved never to fall prey to such weakness and employ the dark arts to ensure his immunity. Unaware of his secret, the warlock's family laughed to see him so aloof and cold. All will change, they prophesied, when a maid catches his fancy. But the young warlock's fancy remained untouched. Though many a maiden was intrigued by his haughty mien and employed their more than subtle arts to please him, none succeeded. The warlock gloried at his indifference. The first freshness of youth waned, and the warlock's peers began to wed, and then to bring forth children. Their hearts must be husks, he sneered, and were lazy to observe the antics of the young parents around him, shriveled by the demands of those offspring. Once again, he continued to congratulate himself upon his wisdom of his early choice. In due course, the warlock's aged parents died. My favorite part of every story. Their son did not mourn them. On the contrary, he considered himself blessed. Now he reigned alone in the castle, having transferred the greatest treasure of his to the deepest dungeon. He gave himself over to a life of ease and plenty. His comfort the only aim of his many, many servants. The warlock was sure that he must be the object of immense envy to all who beheld him. Fierce was his anger, wherefore, when he overheard two of his lackeys discussing him one day. The first servant expressed pity. For all of his wealth and power, he was loved by no one. But his companion jeered, asking why a man with so much gold in a palatial castle could be unable to attract a wife. Their words dealt dreadful blows to the listening warlock's pride. He resolved at once to take a wife, and she should be a wife superior to all others. She would possess outstanding beauty, enticing envy and desire in every man. Their offspring would inherit outstanding magical gifts, and she would have wealth at least equal to his, so that his comfortable existence would be assured in spite of the additions to his household. It might have taken a warlock 50 years to find such a woman, yet it so happened that the very next day he decided to seek her. A maiden answering his every wish arrived in the neighborhood to visit her kin. She was a witch of prodigious skill and possessed much gold. Her beauty was such that it tugged at the heart of every man who set eyes upon her. Every man, that is, except one. But nevertheless, she was a prize, and so he began to pay her court. All noticed the warlock's change in manners and were amazed. They told the maiden, she has succeeded where hundreds of women have failed. The young one herself was both fascinated and repelled by the warlock's attention. She sensed the coldness that lay behind the warmth of his flattery, and had never met a man who was so strange and remote. Her kinsfolk, however, deemed that hers was the most suitable match, and eager to promote it, accepted the warlock's invitation to a great feast in her honor. The table was laden with silver and gold, bearing the finest wines and the best food. Minstrels strummed on silk-string lutes and sang of their love, a love the master had never felt. The maiden sat upon a throne beside him, and he spoke in low words of tenderness, and he had stolen from poets without any idea of their truth. The maiden listened, puzzled, and finally said, you speak well, and I would be delighted by your intentions, if only I thought you had a heart. The warlock smiled. You have not to fear. Follow me, and he led her away from the feast and down to the dungeons where he kept locked away his greatest treasure. There, in an enchanted crystal casket, lay the warlock's beating heart. So long disconnected from eyes and ears and fingers, it had never fallen prey to beauty or to music. It had never felt silken skin. The maid was terrified by the sight of it, for it was shrunken and shriveled and covered in long black hair. Oh, what have you done? She cried. Put it back where it belongs. Seeing that this was necessary to please her, putting his heart inside of his body. Demanding woman. The warlock drew out his wand, unlocked the crystal casket, sliced open his own chest, and placed the hairy heart inside the empty cavity where it once occupied. Now you are healed, and you will know true love, cried the maiden. The soft touch of her white arms, the sound of her breath in his ear, the scent of her bold perfume, all pierced the newly awakened heart like spears. It had grown so strange during its exile, blind and savage. Its appetites had grown powerful and perverse. The guests at the feast noticed the absence of the host and the maiden. That's not the funny part, Oscar. They grew anxious as the hours passed and finally searched the castle. They found the dungeon at last, and the most dreadful sight awaited them. The maiden lay dead on the floor, her breast cut open, and beside her crouched the mad warlock, holding in one bloody hand the great smooth, shining scarlet heart, which he licked and stroked, vowing to exchange it for his own. In his other hand, he held a wand, trying to coax from his own chest the shriveled, hairy heart. But the heart was so strong, it refused to give up its hold on him or return to the coffin in which it had been locked away for so long. Before the horror-struck eyes of the guest, the warlock cast aside his wand, seized a silver dagger, vowing never to be mastered by his own heart, and hacked it from his chest. For one moment, the warlock knelt triumphant, the heart clutched in each hand, and then he fell across the maiden's body and died. Story. Which one did you want to hear again? The Tale of the Three Brothers. There once were three brothers who were traveling along a lonely winding road at twilight. Checking to see if Ron was in the room. However, these brothers were in time the brothers reached a river too deep to wade through and too dangerous to swim across. However, these brothers were learned in the magical arts, so they simply waved their wands and made a bridge appear across to the treacherous water. They were halfway across it when they found their path blocked by a hooded figure. And Death spoke to them. He was angry that he had been cheated out of the three new victims, for travelers usually drowned in the river. But Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the three brothers upon their magic, and said that each one had earned a prize for having been so clever as to evade him. So the oldest brother, who was a combative man, asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, a wand that must always win duels for its owner, a wand worthy of a wizard who would conquer death. So Death crossed to an elder tree on the banks of the river, fashioned a wand from a branch that hung there, and gave it to the oldest brother. The second brother, who was an arrogant man, decided that he would humiliate Death even further, and asked for the power to recall others from death. Death plucked up a stone from the riverbank and gave it to the second brother, told him that the stone would have the power to bring back the dead. Then Death asked the third and youngest brother what he would like. The youngest brother was humble and wise, and he did not trust Death. So he asked for something that would enable him to go forth from that place without being followed by Death. And Death, most unwillingly, handed over his own cloak of invisibility. Then Death stood aside and allowed the two brothers to continue. And so they did, taking with them the wonder of the adventure they had, and admiring Death's gifts. In due course, the brothers separated, each towards his own destination. The first brother traveled on for a week or more, reaching a distant village, sought out a fellow wizard with whom he had a quarrel. Naturally, with the elder wand as his weapon, he could not fail to win the duel. Leaving his enemy dead upon the floor, the oldest brother proceeded to an inn, where he boasted loudly of the powerful wand he had snatched from Death himself, and how it made him invincible. That very night, another wizard crept upon the oldest brother where he was. I'm skipping all over here, aren't I? That very night, another wizard crept upon the oldest brother as he lay wine-sodden upon his bed. The thief took the wand, and for good measure, slit the eldest brother's throat. And so Death took the first brother for his own. Meanwhile, the second brother journeyed from his home, where he lived alone. It's not always that bad. Took out the stone where he had the power to recall the dead. He turned it thrice in his hand, and to his amazement and delight, the figure of the girl he had hoped to marry before her untimely death appeared once more before him. She was sad and cold, separated from him as though by a veil. Though she returned to the mortal world, she did not truly belong here and suffered. Finally, the second brother, driven mad with hopeless longing, killed himself as to truly join her. Then death took the second brother for his own. Death searched for the third brother for many years and was never able to find him. It was only after he had attained a great age that the youngest brother finally took off the cloak of invisibility and gave it to his son. And then he greeted death as an old friend, and he went with him gladly, and as equals, they departed this life. I thought you had a question, you're just stretching back there. I have 10 minutes. All right. For those of you who have one or the other app and who looked in the program booklet and could not find Vladimir Snape because apparently I don't exist, I'm also doing a panel at 5 o'clock in 201. This is 204. In 201. If you were there yesterday, who saw my panel yesterday? Who had questions but didn't get them answered? Well, like two of you, okay. Fantastic. This will be a panel for you and like one other person. If you had questions and you wanted to ask Professor Snape, you didn't get a chance to, or if you want to see this woman ask her question, at 5 o'clock you would go down to 201, and I will stand in front of everybody again and do sort of a Q&A with me. So if you have questions like, what's your lawn made of? Why did you love Lily? What happened? All that nonsense. This is where you... What? That question is actually answered in the book. So I don't have to. Thank God. J.K. Rowling has spared me something. So anyhow, if you have questions and whatnot you'd like to ask me, that would be the best time to do it. I can't get through a story in 10 minutes, so you can ask me questions now or you can bugger off. Good, the Hufflepuffs are leaving. Everybody wave to the Hufflepuffs. The three true houses are left. Sorry, we actually have a question, so.
How do we follow you?
How do you follow me? Oh, that's a fantastic question. How do you actually follow Vladimir Snape? Very good question, sir. I'm Vladimir Snape. I'm on Facebook as Vladimir Snape. If you can't, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube. Is anybody in here a Harry Potter fan? Is anybody in here a Firefly fan? And I'm sure I'm scared to ask this, but has anybody here ever heard of Doctor Who? If you're a fan of these three things, if you look up for the channel on YouTube for Vladimir Snape, you will find a video combining all three fandoms.
Yeah!
Yes, baby. That's what it's called. I'm not blowing kisses back. You have a question. Wow. You know, I've been doing that song for a while, and no, I'm not going to. However, I will make you a promise. Somebody can video this, and I will own up to it. I will make you a promise. Who here plans to go to LeakyCon 2014? All right. You're not going to go, are you? Huh? Okay. Who here wants to lend this girl money to go to LeakyCon 2014? A lot less enthusiasm. Okay. Who here has been to LeakyCon in Orlando?
Yeah!
Right. Did you go to the Harry Potter park after dark, right? If you haven't done this, you have to, because they make a deal with the good people of Orlando that around 8 o'clock they kick out all of the muggles. All the people in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter are con-goers. And then, and additionally, they strike a deal with the good people of Disney, you can go in costume, which Universal. Well, it's whatever. It's Disney World. Screw it. Don't correct me again in public. I have killed a man. It's what I like to refer to as self-promotion. Headmaster. I got this worked out. Next time you'll put me in the Griffins of the Dark Arts. You really old man. Y'all know that I love Dumbledore. I just give him grief because I love him. But anyhow, if you go to LeakyCon in 2014, those of you who can, I promise that I will, 1, bring the guitar, and 2, I will actually perform the Hero of Hogwarts. If you're a Firefly Serenity fan, there's an episode called Jamestown where they sing the Hero of Canton.
Oh, yeah.
We rewrote it as the Hero of Hogwarts. It's now Snape, a man we call Snape. It's on the video. Look up Vladimir Snape on YouTube, and you'll find at least 3 or 4 things for it. And one of it's being really, really awesome music. I'm not going to sing it now. But if you want to get a group of people together, I will give you the lyrics, and you can sing it at 5 o'clock. All right. Do you have a question? Yes. Oh, well, see, what it looks like is it's available in several pictures in gift shops. It's on the table. What is it made of? Well, this is the subject of much debate because J.K. Rowling has said that it's unknown, and the core is unknown, and the wood is unknown. There are some wand crafters out there who have their opinions as to what the wood is and what the core is, and in fact, one wand crafter who's here thinks that Snape has 2 wands. Him and I are at odds on this one. No. What? Snape just has, and I just have, and it's like, kill the illusion to the kids. The one true wand to rule them all. Sorry, wrong category. It is my personal opinion that the wand is, where's Carol? I say Ebony usually, don't I? Yes, thank you. Carol Oster is also a wand crafter. And she has provided me, in addition to my actual Snape wand, she's provided me with five additional wands, so I could kill anybody. It is my personal belief that Snape's wand is made out of ebony, and the core, though I know some people disagree with me on this one, I think the core is industrial hair. So there's my answer. You may applaud now. Thank you for getting me here. I'm going to go out front and stand in that little sort of semicircle. If anybody still wants photos with me, that's where I'm going to go. 5 o'clock and 2:01 if you want to ask me questions or hear me talk again. I'm funnier at 5.